Hey, everybody, Carm Capriato, Aftermarket Weekly. We are rocking and rolling in the summer of 2003. Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing great, Carm. Thank you. Thank you for having me here again.
Always a pleasure, Joe. God, do I love
Yeah.
reading your articles and having you on the show. I appreciate it so much. The couple of things I just want to make a really quick announcement. The Apex Service Awards, this episode is out. There's still about another week to go for the Apex Service Awards. I'm going to play a really short video for everyone to motivate them. Shop owners, service advisor, and technician of the year. Hey, everybody, Carm Capriato, Remarkable Results Radio. Good to see you here. I'm here to talk about the Apex and Joe's Garage Annual Service Awards. Now, each year we get a chance to honor an outstanding shop owner, technician, and service advisor. Listen, I know you know somebody that is worthy of this nomination, and all you got to do is go to look at the address down below, aapexshow.com/service awards. The deadline for the awards is August 31st, 2023 this year. The award will be bestowed at Apex this year, which is October 31st, November 1st, and 2nd in Las Vegas. Go to the website, link down below, look at the application and enter it. It's a hell of an honor to have and a hell of a recognition. And I know you know someone who is worthy. You've got until the end of August 31st this year, and I'll see you at Apex. Hey, Joe, before we jump into our great topics that we're going to do today, kind of a fireside chat with Joe Marconi, thank you so much to Dorman Training. And we're coming to you kind of live and on tape from the Dorman Training Studio. Automotive technologies of today and tomorrow demand that professional technicians continuously maintain and grow their knowledge and skill sets. If one does not update, they will evaporate. Mastering the changing technologies, adapting new and more efficient testing techniques, and exploring new tooling and equipment applications are just a few challenges. Dorman Training is dedicated to providing the latest information and proven service and repair tips brought to you by some of the nation's best instructors in the company of some of the nation's best technicians. Dorman has been a leader in driving new product solutions for the automotive aftermarket for more than a century. With DormanTrainingCenter.com, we also deliver the technical training and insight service professionals need to further their careers and stay current. The automotive industry constantly evolves with technical advancements, making it crucial for technicians to stay updated with the latest trends and techniques. By undergoing comprehensive training, aspiring technicians will equip themselves with the necessary skills and knowledge to excel in their field. In addition to personal technical training throughout the United States, Dorman Training Center delivers online training modules covering a wide variety of topics, with new resources rolling out regularly. Whatever your role or experience, you can find helpful information on DormanTrainingCenter.com. Dorman Technical Training covers many of today's advanced automotive systems, including hybrid EV, driver assistance, diagnostics, emission, and complex electronics. Created for working service professionals and taught by ASE certified instructors, classes are held as lunch and learns in the evenings and weekends at on-site locations, as well as available on demand. Bring your knowledge to the next level at DormanTrainingLive.com. Hey, thank you, Dorman. Joe, are you busy now that you sold your shop? I mean, you're just kind of lounging out enjoying this summer.
No, I'm not. I thought that I had all this time to do things and to play golf, and it's not that way. It really isn't. And Darren Barney took over Elite. He's expanding the business, and he's given me a lot of new opportunities. So it's like I moved from one career to the next with there's no middle in there. So, but it's all good. Trust me, it's all good. I'm loving what I'm doing, helping the industry. I'm involved. So it's all really good.
Good for you. Yeah. Elite Worldwide, you're so passionate. You've got such, great stuff. I want to cover something you just recently wrote. You have a site, autoshopowners.com, the Automotive Shop Management Network. And thank you for publishing our stuff on there. You wrote an article that just came into my inbox today. And I say, oh my God, look at this. I'm interviewing Joe. He writes this article called, and here's the title, Don't Expect Your Employees to Leave Their Problems at Home. And I read it and I felt strong about it. And then there were a couple of quick replies to your post. And I did another reply myself. It's about, hey, leave your problems at home, in essence. I don't think we build great retention. I don't think we build work family if we ignore all the issues that are going on in our lives.
That's an old expression. I remember as a kid, leave your problems at home. That was a big deal because you didn't want your home life to affect your work life. But the reality is, it's impossible. And by the way, this is a blog that I put out, came out today. And everything I write about, whether it's on Ratchet and Ranch or on my site, Auto Shop Owner, they're all real life situations, whether it's personal or from what I hear from clients and other shop owners. Actually came from a fellow shop owner that came to me and said, I'm having a problem with a technician and his hours are dropping, production's dropping. It's not the same anymore. And what can I do to get his production up? I says, well, have you sat down with him? Is he going through anything? And he goes, sit down with him. I go, yeah. He said, are you approachable? Can he approach you? So he says, I didn't think of that. So long story short, the technician was having problems at home with his wife and they had challenges. Matter of fact, to a point where he had to move out of his house and live in an apartment. These are challenges that no matter what you think about your business end of it, if you don't understand and have a little bit of empathy for what's going on in their lives, you can't build a team of people that you mentioned, the culture that tells people, first of all, live two lives. It's my work life, it's my home life. And they have to work in unison with each other. But there are times when you can't leave the problems at home, and it works vice versa too, Carm. Sometimes what's going on in the shop and those problems in the work environment, they're going to flow over and extend to the home life. So as shop owners, managers, you got to be aware of these things.
I think you nailed it. Are we spending enough time finding out what is going on with the people that work for us away from work?
Right.
If we want them to be really good at work, we want them to have a good home life. We want them to be grounded. And just recently, we just had a terrible thing happen inside the family, and daughter-in-law got burned, second-degree burns. And my son was working. He's a counselor. They're bringing on the new students. There's an orientation. We couldn't get through to him. She's at the emergency hospital, and he's going to take that to work. But he's going to have to tell some of the people he works with, hey, my wife's in the hospital. She's in the burn unit, blah, blah. All this stuff going on. I mean, you wrote this at a time where there's something going on in my world, in my family.
Yeah.
And it happens more than I think we know. And if you stay close to your people and you know what their goals are and you know what their family is like and their challenges, and part of my response is what I called deep think. I wrote back in Charlie's reply.
Yeah.
And we're always, Joe, you're busy. I'm so happy for you. Sell the business. You've never been alive and more busy.
Right.
But Joe, the minute you get a chance to let some air out, you go back into deep think.
Right.
This is what I call, I'm doing this. I got to cover that. I got to follow up on this. I've got this great idea.
Yeah.
Always think. If the deep think isn't good, then we're going to maybe not torque one of the final bolts. We may lose a tire. We may lose a customer. There are
Good point.
happen in our muscle memory, but deep think doesn't rely on that.
Yeah. Well, let me just piggyback on something you said, which is very important. You mentioned that you have to be the complete employer and a complete employee in terms of sharing these relationships that happen at home and on the job, but that doesn't always happen. And sometimes the owner or the manager is not approachable. That's a big deal because they're not approachable enough. And this technician in this situation that shut down because of family problems, he didn't feel like he can go to his boss, his manager. What I recommend clients to do, and I preach this when I do Fly with the Eagles for Elite, it's a term out of a book by Tom Peters from the early 80s, management by walking around. And that means when you got to walk around the shop floor and talk about things that are not just about business, get into the hearts and minds of the people that work with you every day. Find out about them. What did they do last weekend? What are they going to plan on doing this weekend? How are their kids doing? Are you going on your Harley this weekend? Whatever it is, but you've got to get them to a point where, again, I'm going to repeat myself, you're approachable. So that you don't want things to go on for such a long period of time that before you know it, they're shutting down totally.
Knuckles. We all know are important connection points between the wheel and the vehicle suspension, connecting hubs, bearings, calipers, struts, and control arms. Steering and suspension knuckles often need replacement after collisions, curb strikes, or rust-related issues, and bearings can simply wear out, often after 75,000 miles. Unfortunately, when it comes time to replace a knuckle or a press-in bearing, there's often rust. That can result in hours of labor that require a shop press and risks potentially damaging the knuckle or backing plate. Dorman has created a time-saving solution with their loaded knuckles. These knuckles are complete assemblies that are tech-preferred. They are an easy bolt-on solution for difficult bearing and knuckle replacements that save significant time and money for you and your customer. An OE Fix is a Dorman repair solution you can't get from the original equipment manufacturer, and it means they found a situation where they believe the OEM wasn't giving repair professionals what they wanted, so we fixed it. Everything Dorman does is centered around providing customer value, both in the quality of products and the creativity of solutions. Our engineers and designers, well, they go out of their way to save repair technicians time and save vehicle owners money. Replacing rear-wheel bearings on some Toyota trucks can be extremely frustrating. The bearing housing often becomes damaged when the old bearing is pressed out or when the new bearing is pressed in. Not only that, but a shop press may or may not be available. To assist with jobs like this, Dorman has developed a 90-plus minute time-saving solution with their OE Fix pre-assembled axles. These bolt-on solutions eliminate the uncertainty of performing this basic repair with all of the major components, such as the axle, bearing, backing plate, bolts, and seals, already assembled and ready to install right out of the box. Want to learn more about Dorman's innovations? Well, visit dormanproducts.com/tour. There are some people that are leaders in our industry that aren't approachable because they don't know how to be.
I get it.
And I think, Joe, listen, let's just figure this thing out. Go back to Darren, go to Elite and say, we need to create some training on how to be approachable. Part of our problem is we have lived in old school, leave your problems at home, wrong thing to do. But then how do I turn myself around as a leader who knows that they need to get inside of what's going on in their people so that they give me a great day of work, relieve the pressure by you coming in and telling me something has just basically happened inside the family. I know you're worried about it. You may get a text. You may have to leave. I get all that stuff. But how do I learn to have empathy? How do I learn to sit down in front of an individual and not be a coach or a guidance counselor, but to be a sounding board?
And another great point, it all goes back to leadership. And I think leadership, being a boss are two different things. I think it goes to a lot of self-reflection and looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, who am I as a person first? Because before, look, the business is, I get it. I was a business owner for 41 years. I get all that. Trust me, I get the day in and day out. And sometimes you're afraid to get into their personal lives because you feel you're taking your foot off the gas, putting on the pedal too much, because those interpersonal relationships kind of slow things up, but they don't. Work the exact opposite. I think every business owner and manager has to come to a realization that I have to be a person first and find out a lot about myself. Who am I? I have to treat these people as if I'm going out to dinner, going out to a barbecue with them, and say, what's important to them? What are they like at home? That's where it starts. The thing about leadership, it's about people skills. That's why leaders can be better at being leaders, because they're basic people skills. We all have them inside of us. Just got to bring them out.
Every single leadership book I read, every seminar I attended, my God, it's a continuous learning process. And if you strive to be an exceptional leader and you're not training yourself over and over again, then shame on you. Thank you for writing that. Joe's blog was Don't Expect Your Employees to Leave Their Problems at Home. I do expect that there's going to be a lot of replies to that. Joe and I had a ton of other things to talk about, but this happened today, that we're recording this. Let's jump into some of the old great topics. You were talking to me about old school and sometimes we need a little old school, you were telling me.
Well, I remember, I go back to my father, and he was the generation, grew up in the Depression, World War II. Matter of fact, he was a young kid, 5, 6 years old, and he remembers the Spanish flu of 1918, 1919. So, and that generation had to learn to save the world. Let's face it, that was their thing. You have to save the world, and not going to get any help with this. So I remember my first day with a real job. I was 16 years old. It was was on the books, taxes taken out. It was a grocery store, stock shelves and delivered groceries. So the night before, it was a summer job, by the way. I was 16 years old, summer job. So he says to me, so what time do you start tomorrow? I go, 9 o'clock. He says, what time are you going to get to your job? I said, 9 o'clock. He says, so you're telling me you plan on being late the first day at your new job? so, so, so I said, what do you mean? He says, look, then he makes this analogy. If there's a 5 o'clock game at Yankee Stadium, does Mickey Mantle get to the stadium at 5 o'clock? He says, no. He says, he gets there early. He says, you got to get there early. If you get there on time, you're late. And we've heard this expression. So I says, what should I do? He says, you got to get there 15 minutes beforehand, 10 minutes. You got to show some respect for the job that with the opportunity given you. So, and I bring that up only because as a business coach now, lateness is a big problem. And I've heard all the excuses. Well, they make it up during their lunch break. They stay late. That's not the point. There are certain things that in my world are kind of non-negotiable. I get that no one can be always 100% year after year. I get the exception. The exception can't be the rule. I mean, there are certain guidelines. And if you have 2 or 3 people coming late and 5 or 6 people that are there on time, what kind of message does it send to the rest of the people, the employees? And what kind of message does it send to the people that are doing things the right way about your leadership skills? So I think that's just one example of we got to blend. We got to blend some old school with new school.
Why is it
You know,
going on? Why is this lateness going on?
I spoke to a few people that I know in the education world. First, my daughter's a school psychologist. I got a good friend of mine he works for New York City school systems. And he says that they don't put a big emphasis on if they come in late, there's always an excuse and they let it go. Now, I remember going in my high school, I was born and raised in the Bronx. If you were late, the side doors were closed. You had to come in and there was somebody waiting for you and you didn't go to class. You went directly to the office and you had to sit there and you were held accountable. They called you parents. That doesn't go on anymore. And I think we make too much excuses, being flexible. We don't emphasize some of the things that we did years ago. Now, let me just say something. I don't think that being old school totally is the way that we should be. My first day as a technician on a new job, I was 21 years old. The boss pulls me aside and says, Joe, there are 3 ways of doing things: the right way, the wrong way, and then there's my way. You do things my way, and we're going to get along just fine around here. It was my way or the highway. So I think that end of the old school, that's got to end, and it has to a certain degree. I think we need that blend. That's what I'm trying to say.
I like where you're going with this. And let me try to relate another story about Grandpa John, my grandfather, Capriato. And he taught me, Joe, honesty, integrity, ethics, responsibility, and that my
Yeah.
word was my bond. You could think that's old school, but it's not. And to your point about being old school, who is teaching us that stuff today?
That's a great point, Carm. And I also look back on my father, my grandfather. And let me give you another story, too, which piggybacks on your point. When Saturday mornings, if my father was home, he didn't have to go, it wasn't working. He had a shop, too, wasn't working. We had to do our chores. I had 3 other brothers, and we lived in a small apartment, but we had to keep it clean. And one of my jobs in the Saturday morning was to vacuum the rugs. So I used to vacuum the rug real quick because I want to get out there and play. It's a Saturday morning. I want to get out there and play outside. But my father would, every week, he used to come there. If he was home, he would pull the couch aside and say, vacuum behind the couch. So I vacuum real quick. And I always say to my father, oh, no one sees behind the couch, just week after week. So one day he tells me, you're right. No one sees behind the couch. You do. That's all that matters. So in other words, again, that's an old school thing. It doesn't matter. You just do the right things for the right reasons. So to your point, and your word is your bond. I heard that often, your words. Again, we need that blend. We need that blend.
There is nothing wrong with us as leaders of our businesses and it's incredible, the young people that are joining our industries in so many of our shops. Some people are so proud to say, I got a 21-year-old and he's going to be incredible. He's going to be fabulous. Should we take what we learned old school? And again, let's not count old school as negative, Joe. But who's teaching us honesty, integrity, ethics, responsibility, your word? Who's teaching us that? And I would suggest, if you're listening and you're a shop owner, leader, COO of an organization,
Agreed.
Why not, in the opportunities that you have for the meetings that you have with your team, to just pick something and says, hey, guys, we know we got a great culture here, but let's talk about honesty. Let's talk about starting work on time. And then another meeting, let's talk about the integrity. And again, let's go back to your lateness thing. The thing that I thought about, Joe, was people rely on us. We rely on each other. So if someone shows up at 8 o'clock because they know that's when we open and we can't be there to serve, we've disappointed people along the way.
Absolutely.
People rely on us. Maybe that's the kind of deep think we have to realize why we're getting to work early.
It goes back to your point about leadership too. Where does that start? I think each of us has to take on some sort of responsibility and a leadership position, and just to lead ourselves first. And I think that, going back to my father's analogy of no one sees it but you, think about that. You're doing a job, you're coming in on time, you're doing a brake job, and no one really sees you lubricating the backing plates or lubricating the slides of the caliper. No one sees you doing that, but why do you do it? All right. So it all comes back to, if you're not doing things for yourself first, if you don't have that self-respect first to do things for the right reasons, I don't know where that leads to, because in my day, you proved yourself first, and then we'll sit down and talk. And I think we need to blend that too. I think that we need to blend that too with pay and benefits and the right work environment. I agree with you. It's not all negative in the past. It wasn't all negative, but there's certain things we should leave in the past, and there's
Yeah.
certain things that happen today that we should improve upon. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, thanks for kicking the butt with this. This was great.
Yeah.
I think that we all, every once in a while, need to hear guys like us sharing this
Yeah.
conversation, and
Yeah.
hopefully we can go out there and change some people. Hey, let's talk about A-rated technicians. Do we need
Yeah.
to redefine it? I am passionate. I've done some blogs on this. We've done
I
shows on this.
I know.
Talk to me, man.
I've heard your shows on this. I read a lot about this, and I think it's time, especially these days. When I was working at the Ford dealership back in the late 70s, I went in there as a B-level technician. And then I says, well, what's the qualifications for an A-level technician? So the service manager says, here's the bumper, front bumper, and rear bumper. You have to know how to do everything in between. In other words, whether it was rebuilding a steering rack, rebuilding a steering gear, I should say, rebuilding an engine, rebuilding a differential, transmission, electrical, climate control, whatever it is, you had to do all that.
All world.
All world. Yeah. That was only one car line. So you could probably do it. That was my goal. Leave there as an A-rated technician. And I did that. And even in the independent world, when I worked for different garages and, growing up, you worked on 3 car lines, basically: General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. And they all broke down a lot. So you had a lot of work back then. But if you think about fast forward today, it's just not that way anymore. It's too much to learn. And let me give you a good example. About 4 or 5 years before I sold the company, I hired someone he was born and raised in Greece. He was trained as an undercar technician in Greece. He didn't know anything about drivability, engine repair, transmission repair, nothing. Electrical, that wasn't his cup of tea. But what he did know was alignments, brakes, steering, suspension, everything under car. If you give him a problem, a driveline problem, a vibration, he would figure it out. Well, in my mind, and he was proficient, he was excellent, very productive. Why isn't he an A-rated technician? Just because you can't reserve that spot for a certain sector of technicians that have like a talent toward drivability, electrical, diagnosis, things like that. It's just not that way anymore. Maybe back in the day, you can get away with that type of rating. Throw in hybrids, EVs, you need to specialize. You need to specialize, and each of those specializations should have its own. Right?
Yes, should have its own level. Listen, if I show propensity to want to be really good at chassis, Joe, I get alignments. I mean, it's just me. It's a natural part of how I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
great. Well, then let's
Yeah.
take you as a production apprentice and make you a C and a B and then an A tech for chassis and alignments.
That's what I'm saying.
You're exactly right. And I love the idea of being a specialist in, I guess there's too much incoming, too much technology. And to a point, heard Matt Fonslow recently talk about that we're relying too much on AI and networks to help us diagnose, that he believes in another X amount of short-term years, we're going to not be able to understand what a scope means and what it looks like. It's going to have dust on it. And then when we really are needed, we're going to realize that we've fallen behind.
First of all, Matt Fonslow, his perspective from his point of view, that technician, is priceless. It really is. So I listen to him all the time. So Matt, I tip my hat to you. You do a great job. Let me just go one further about technology. The industry has got so segmented. So this compartment, you can just separate it so much. It's almost like when you have a dentist, a psychologist, a pediatrician, a surgeon, they're all considered doctors and all A-level people, right?
Oh,
but yet they're all different. So we need to move to that position, and plus think about this. It'll open the doors for more careers pathing, for more people to get into industry. In other words, the pathway to the top Doesn't have to be, well, you have to eventually understand electrical and diagnosis, drivability, onboard computers. That's not your pathway necessarily. I go back to this employee that I hired from Greece. He eventually got the status of A-level in my shop because he was worth it. I think we need to rethink that.
I love it. Again, speaking of Matt, him and I did an episode on The Bear, this TV show on The Bear, where
Yeah,
the
I heard it.
chefs,
Yeah.
and oh my God, I mean, they have sous chefs, they have bakery
Yeah.
chefs, but they're specialists in this one particular area.
There you
And
go. Yeah.
for a sous chef to move to being a bakery chef, they got to go back to school because they are so ingrained, so embedded
Yeah.
in the job that they do. No
Yeah.
one can touch them. They're so good at it.
Well, I think we need to take a lesson from that. I really do.
I know. And Matt and I, and Joe, I'm going to recruit you to think the word chef, when I started to watch that episode and started to realize the importance that the designation, the professionalism of calling each other chef. I don't call you Joe. If you and I were working in a kitchen in a high-end place, Joe, no matter what it is you did, if you worked in the kitchen, I
Chef.
would not call you Joe. I would call you chef.
And that's out of respect, right?
And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think about the
Yeah.
professionalism, what we need to know in our industry. What can we call? And I was playing around with, do we call
Yeah.
each other tech? I'm challenging the industry to
It's a
help
good
us
concept.
come up
Yeah.
with a professional moniker, professionalism, saying that
Yeah.
we would all, somebody who is in apprenticing wants this one day
Aspiring
be a
to.
chef.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the concept. I'll think about it. That's a great concept, Carl.
Thank
It
you. I
really is.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Joe, I know you talk to your
Yeah.
people a lot about retention and recruiting. Which
Yeah.
is more important?
First of all, no one's going to deny that there's not just a technician shortage, but an employee shortage. I just went to the mall the other day. We took my granddaughter to the mall. We went around a little bit, and I'm telling you, help wanted, hire within. They're all over the place. I even saw a billboard on Route 22, a local automotive repair shop that went for this huge billboard trying to find technicians. So it's out there. But I think that we sidestep our obligations sometimes by not realizing that the first part of attracting people to our companies has to be involved in understanding retention. What type of environment do you have? Do you provide the training? Do you provide a real career path that includes what the employee values as part of their career path? Because you may have your career levels here and map it out, but does that align with their goals, their future objectives? So I think the retention is number one. If you don't have the facility or the company that attracts the quality people and retains them, you're going to have a revolving door. I think in those terms, retention first, and then you should have an ongoing recruiting policy or recruiting program.
I hate to keep dropping Matt's name, but he and I were on the phone just yesterday. Every time he comes up with a podcast episode, he says,
Yeah.
"Hey, I got an idea." We're talking about career pathing, Joe. Ironically, you just brought it up. And Matt was challenging my think that, well, what really is career pathing? And I said, we've done shows on it in the past. And so after he and I chatted, part of what we were thinking about, and I think we were sharing together, was, okay, thank you for coming in, production apprentice, appreciate that. Let me lay out a career path. Here it is. Someday you may be able to do this and this. Isn't that exciting? I would not quite say that's the way to approach career pathing.
Exactly. I agree.
Career pathing would be, look, this next year, 365 days, you're going to get these trainings. I'm writing them down. I know where we're going to get them. And you're going to study this and this. You're going to do this ASE here. And then in 2025, this is what we're doing. So don't lay out a movie picture idea. Lay out in real terms what is going on, what is happening. So if the person wants to get deep think into their career path, they can pretty much see, oh, I'm going to Vision, I'm doing this virtual training, I'm doing a lunch and learn. And it's not words, it's literally a plan. It's a strategic plan for an individual on paper. Show me the career path. Don't tell me.
You're right. And one more component, I will talk to Matt about this too. One more component, like a person wants to become an accountant or a finance person, there's a pathway to that eventual career and that eventual position, whatever that looks like in the future. But they also have the ability to they have skin in the game, and they have the ability to help with that career path thing. I think that one of the best things that you can do is sit down with you, and they may not know at 21, 22 exactly what that looks like. If you like the way you mapped it out, that's beautiful, but they have to have some sort of input and some sort of a little bit of control, because when somebody has control and when part of that process comes from them, then they really feel that they take ownership of that and that they're going to be more inclined to follow that career path. Plus, what a great way to have somebody retention again in your shop that knows that this company is taking care of my career path, but I also have input on what I want to vision myself in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It may change. We all change when we're young, but I think that getting the individual involved in their own career pathing is critical these days. It really is. It
Totally
can't just
agree.
come from the ownership or the management.
Great insight. Wow, I love that. Okay, so I'm a shop owner, Joe, and I want to sell my business, and you take me on as a client. And I said, yeah, all right, Joe, you're finally on. I finally got this coaching thing. You want to do this thing, and I think I want to sell my business in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
What you say?
Well, sometimes I'm saying it's a little too late. Sometimes. Well, first of all, Michael Gerber, the E-Myth, he wrote in his book back in 1985, the E-Myth. This is not an exact quote, but I think he said one of the responsibilities as an entrepreneur is to get your business ready to sell eventually. So, I mean, and that goes back to old world values again, old fashioned values. One of the things that people tell you is you buy a house today, make sure that it's ready to sell tomorrow. You don't want to wait until you're ready to sell, ready to get out, and then you start fixing the house up because it's a little too late. And again, like I said earlier, a lot of what I write about and teach and preach is about real life things. We have clients that come to us. I'm 58 years old, 61 years old. I'm looking to sell in 2 or 3 years. What do I need to do now? What have you done? To answer your question in a long roundabout way, you got to start thinking. If you're in business today and you open up your shop today, I know it's hard to think that way, but you have to have everything in place and grow to that position where you can sell at any time. Look, let's face it, life can throw you a curveball tomorrow. You can get sick, you get into an accident, you could become, things can happen to you or a family member. And so you got to have everything in place. And one of the things I want to mention is the financials. If your financials, I got to clean them up and I need help. You've been in business 35 years and what do they look like the past 35 years? So there's a lot to this, but to sum this up real quick, you have to do all the right things at any given time in your business career to make that business ready to sell at any given time. It'll be more profitable. You'll attract better people. You'll hold on to better people. You'll have a better looking facility, a maintained facility, and your business will be worth more at any given time in its entire career. So those are my thoughts.
I love it. Don't wait till it's time.
Don't wait.
Do it now. Go back to the Gerber quote. One of my takeaways from that book was every decision you make should be determined on selling your business. And so you say, would this be good for my business, good for my people, good for our customers?
Right.
Make that decision that says, will it help the value of my business and continue employment for my people? Hey, one final thing I want to ask you. How many customers that have gone to 4-day work weeks?
Personally, how many clients? I don't have any personal clients. There are some in our group probably, but I don't know. I know we have a coach, Greg Skolnick from, I believe, Maryland. A great guy, Greg.
Love Greg.
Greg is a great guy. He pioneered this years ago.
He did. Oh my God. Oh, by the way, I think I interviewed him 8 years ago, right in the early days of me. And he was talking about his 4-day work week. Love Greg. I don't even know.
He's a great guy.
But anyway, so out of your client base, you don't have any, but what percentage do you think of the people that you know? 30, 40%?
No, I don't think it's that high. I really don't, Carm. I think it's really low. I don't know for sure. A good guess would be under 10% in my world. I really, let me tell you something. The 4-day work week, it's not for everyone. And I don't want to mislead anyone because I hear a lot of shop owners who have done it that preach it. This is the best way to do it, the only way to do it. And this may go contrary to what other coaches may think too. So this is my own personal opinion. If a client has to prove to me that they can't close down to 5 days, because some of them work 5.5, 6 days. We have one client, he's not my client, but he's a client in the elite group in Texas, 4 locations. He told me there is no way I'm going to close down Saturdays. It's one of my best days. By the way, he has no problem retaining people and no problem hiring people. And I think that, again, if the 4-day work week is your decision and it's right for you, go ahead. Call Greg Skolnick. He'll tell you how to do it, But it's not something that we should paint the broad brush and say, this is the way it should be. This is what's coming down. Businesses are like fingerprints. There's no two that are alike. And you have to make decisions based upon what is right for your business. And I can't tell a client, you should go to 5. The first thing you're going to do is go to 5 days. It would be so wrong for me to do that, especially someone that has so many other issues to deal with. Let's get to a point. You want to rotate those Saturdays? You want to have a 4-day work week for someone? Whatever you want to do, I'll work with you. But it has to be your decision, what's right for you, not because you heard it from another
Right.
an event or a trade show or read it in an article. Because I want to be careful, because as a person now that's in a position where I do seminars, I do webinars, I do a lot of coaching, consulting, I have to be real careful about how of the position that I take, and not just say there's one size and fits all. I hope I'm making that clear.
No,
Right?
you are. The reason that I asked is I think there's a lot of people always sitting on the fence thinking and wanting to do it. And the reason that I asked, and I think you gave us the perfect answer, Joe, is it really depends on your situation, your market, your people,
It really
your
is.
clients. And it doesn't mean, though, as an owner that you have to be there all 6 days or all 5. I mean, there's another part of the whole entire story about,
Exactly.
you as a
Exactly.
leader and the kind of people that you have and who can carry my ball when I'm not there. That's what Greg learned a long time ago, how to do all of this.
Yeah.
He may have been one of the first ever, not the first ever in the industry, but an innovator when it came to figuring out what that 4-day work week was all about.
Right.
Just go to our website, type in Greg Skolnick, you'll see some of them
Yeah.
episodes, and that may motivate you to think of the decisions you need to make
Yeah.
on how you work. If you're 6, you want
Yeah.
to go to 5. If you're 5, you want to go to 4. The reason
Yeah.
that I brought this up, and I know you wanted to speak to it, was in the last week, I've had 2 people on my show, last week and a half, 2 people on my show that are at 4. They say it was one of the best things we ever did. And
Oh,
again,
that's fine.
it's circumstantial. I get that.
That's fine. I have a client that has a gas station. He's in the gas station business his whole life. His father was in it. He's in the gas station business. They're open 7 days a week. And his repair shop is open 5.5 days a week. The repair shop ended it. But he has a C-store. He has a car wash. He's got gas going. A lot going on there. So it would be an injustice for me to say to him, this is what you have to do. It really would.
My vision is if you're a really strong local marketplace, single operation, you probably could go to 4. But if you're a large MSO, 5, 6, 9 operations, I don't think you could go to 4. I think 5 would be where a lot of the guys want to go. And then if you really are spending a ton of money on marketing, you probably need to be there at 6.
Exactly. And that's a good point, Carm. It all depends where you are. In other words, how do you manage if you operated a 6-day operation for 25 years? How do you get to 5 days? That's a challenge within itself. I'll help you. I will help you look at the numbers, rearrange scheduling, customer base. You may have customers that say, well, look, I've been coming to you for 20 years and I can only come on Saturday. So, and I know you can work around that. Please, I know I've been around the block a number of times. Again, I want to say this in honesty and fairness to everyone. If that is your thing and you want to go to 6 to 5 or 5 to 4, I'll help you do it. But it has to be your choice that works for you and not just because you've heard it somewhere else.
I get it. I totally get it. And it's also, as we said, circumstantial. Don't think that there's a trend and you have to be there. Some people make terrible decisions without any support in helping them with it.
Yeah.
Hey, this was great. Thank you for coming on and just
Oh,
kind of fireside chatting with me, Joe.
thank you. And I know you hate to be praised. I know that about you, but I want to just thank you for what you do for the industry. I love doing this with you. And you bring so much wealth of knowledge and so much diversity in thinking about different subjects. It's just amazing. So thank you for doing this.
Wait till you hear our episode coming up on grief. Yeah, we're going to bring in a grief expert to talk about how we deal with this stuff. And it goes back to your whole thing about what's going on with people and how they deal with certain situations. And I felt it was so important knowing all the stuff that goes on in our world and in our life and the loss of a loved one, the loss of jobs, and all these issues that we have to deal with. And I'm going to bring on a grief expert to help us with it. That's coming up. Joe Marconi,
Thank
Elite
you.
Worldwide, and the autoshopowners.com, Automotive Shop Management Network. Joe, thank you so much. Now, if you're listening and you just loved what we were talking about, and if you learned anything, and I'm sure you did, go out and get it done. Thanks.
There you go. Thank you. Have a great day, Carm.